What's up, wrestling fans, trading card collectors? Welcome to episode 3 of Wrestling with Cards Live. This has been a lot of fun, and we already have somebody in the chat. Todd Bailey, welcome. Yeah, saying that you finally caught a live. I understand it's a little bit harder for people to get into these in the middle of the day, and you may be asking, like, why would I choose to stream in the middle of the day and not at night when probably more people are available? And it's just the time I have. And the thing is, if you missed this live, you can catch it in the archives, and I'm trying to structure the shows to where there's still like great information for collectors and people to go back and reference. So, and of course, today we're talking about PSA. And raise your hand. Oh, yeah, I see thousands of you out there. Anybody who's ever been frustrated with PSA. I understand they are the gold standard of grading. And if you want things to essentially be authenticated to where you could either have proof that it is real, well, we'll talk about that. Or if you want to sell it at the highest value, PSA has kind of become the standard. I understand that. I'm a member of PSA. However, it has not stopped my frustration. But I'm not going to be the old man in the clouds, so to speak, yelling here. We've got a lot of good things I want to cover too. What we're going to go through is just show some recent subs, talk about them, what my plans are with them. Did I agree with them? Did I disagree? What kind of the hiccup with some of this stuff? So Todd, thanks for joining us today. Anybody else that jumps in, if you've got a comment watching this in the archives, leave it below. If you're in the chat, drop questions, comments, anything like that. We will cover it. So we're going to just run through some random things and talk about them. So let's go with our first submission here. All right, so we've got a PSA 8 Don Morocco. So I was pretty pleased with this. Anything, in my opinion, on the All-Stars that is an 8 or higher is generally a good grade for me. That's just kind of what I think, based on what I've seen, kind of pop reports and stuff out there. So a lot of low-graded stuff. So you may be asking, like, why do I just grade the card and not the auto? I don't know. It's just something I've done. I feel like, and this may be a hot take, but I feel like if people are just trying to grade the auto, or maybe they're trying to grade both, I feel like they're just trying to catch the value, which makes sense if you're trying to sell it. But I have this, like, I guess it's an OCD thing of like uniformity within my collection. And most of these things, which I'm going to get ready to contradict myself, most of these things that I'm buying within the All-Stars or Carrying Cross or whatever, I want the uniformity. I'm not trying to sell these things. They're part of a set collection, building that out. So that's why I don't even remember, like, I think maybe it was the Hogan or something. I don't know. I had the first one, and whatever I stuck with was like a grade, and then the auto just as authentic. That's what I stuck with. So that's kind of what I'm running the gamut with for the whole set. And if I get one that's like, I just won Joyce Gable auto on eBay, which I'll probably post that on Instagram down the road. But I bought that, and I think it's like authentic card and authentic auto, so no grades. That's something I could get crossed over down the road if I chose, but it regardless, it's in a PSA slab to begin with. So that's kind of my plan with this. Now, I will say, this card is gone. I already got rid of it. Now, again, I told you I was just going to contradict myself by saying, well, if you're wanting to collect these things, well, why is it gone already? And the reason being is I had somebody reach out to me, Uncle Danny. Most of you guys probably know him on Twitter. He's working on the registry on trying to get the highest grades on the autos and cards across the Wrestling All-Stars that he can. So he reached out to me, or I actually reached out to him because we've done some trades in the past, and he was like, yeah, I'm interested in that. So usually on these kind of trades, I'm more than happy to help out other people if they want a higher grade, and it's something that I have because I don't care. As long as it's graded, as long as it's authenticated, I'm good with it. I don't need to have the top graded cards within the pop reports and all. I don't care. I just want the complete set, want it signed, want it graded. That's it. So he reached out to me and he wanted to trade. And usually when I do these trades, the only way I will do it is if I'm getting the same card in return. So he had a Morocco. I don't even remember the grade. Maybe I think it was just a little bit lower. Maybe the auto was graded. I'll pull it out sometime. But I was like, yeah, sure, whatever. Let's just add something on top. And we were, we'll get to that in a minute. So pretty happy with the Morocco there. Let's move on to the next one. 1 second here. If you got anything in the chat, again, just comment on whatever you want. Comments, questions, anything like that. We're going to go back to Uncle Danny here. Because story behind this one when I can find it. So, here we are. Jumpin' Jim Brunzell. Let me scroll down so you can see this card a little bit better. There we go. So this is another one. Uncle Danny reached out and he was like, hey, this is a higher grade than the one I have. Do you want a deal? Absolutely. So he sent me another Brunzell, which I don't think the auto is as good, but maybe the card is graded higher, something like that. Again, don't care so much about the grades. So we got that in exchange. So you may be asking, okay, well, you gave him a Morocco and you gave him this Brunzell, and both of them are higher grades, and he gave you lower grades. Why would you do that? What the heck? So in exchange for that, and this is kind of how you can take this is how good deals are made and relationships are built within the community when you start dealing with people. So in exchange for essentially the same cards on a little bit lower grade, he gave me a Mr. Wrestling 2 Wrestling All-Stars autograph. And I was very excited to have that because I did not have that one. I had the base card in the set, but not a signed version. So he was able to let me have that because he had dupes of that when he had a higher grade. So anytime you guys have duplicates of anything, it's always great to kind of move those on to other collectors unless it's part of a super collection, like my Karrion Kross stuff. I don't know how many of like base cards I have, like maybe hundreds at this point. And it's just kind of a fun thing to do. But when you kind of get into these upper echelon cards that are key iconic cards, people want them. I'm always okay of letting duplicates go as long as I got one in the collection to keep the set or whatever. So that is the Jim Brunzell. So let's move on to the next card. We've got more Wrestling All-Stars. Not that anyone's probably surprised with that. And of course, it's another card that I no longer have. Zhan, you're a hypocrite. What are you doing talking about being a collector? You're not a true collector, bro. You're getting rid of these things. Well, again, I like to help people out if it helps me out at the same time. So here we have a Rick Martel, and I was able to trade this. Let me pull it up on Instagram because I am going blank right now. I'm going to shout out the Instagram account, New Champion Cards. Hang on, I just got some notifications. Something else. But shout out to New Champion Cards, Chris. He's on Twitter also. You can check him out. Basically, he's got a lot of these signed as well, and he wanted the blue. And I actually just made another Harley race trade with him as well. And so some people are going after certain aspects of some of these cards, whether it's the type of ink, maybe it's I have a signed copy, but this person has the signed copy that's actually better looking from the eye appeal, and they want that. So that's where I was able to make a trade with him, and I basically got another Rick Martel. It was ungraded, but it will pass. It almost looks like the signature is very, very similar. And so I got to get that graded. So in exchange for the cost that it's going to grade me, and since he reached out to me and wanted this card, he also sent me just a bunch of other stuff. So random wrestling, random sports cards, random stuff that I could just sell to kind of make up the difference and have that availability of getting the raw one he sent to me graded. Again, always happy to help out anybody that I can, as long as I've got one in the collection. So that's that one. We will take a look at the next card here. So this one is just something that I absolutely love, and I'm probably in the minority on this one. And that is ballpoint pen signatures. Most people want Sharpies, most people want paint pens, but these old school cards, like this one, you can see when you look at the card really carefully, you can see the indentions within the card that was signed with the ballpoint ink pen. I'm a huge Bill Watts fan. I know a lot of people hate him for numerous reasons, but when I go back and watch Mid-South stuff, there's just something that was different and cool about him as opposed to like what we see presented today. Again, I'm not an old man yelling at the clouds. I understand wrestling changes, society changes, a lot of things change, and that's okay. That's how it should be. But I also like to go back and watch a lot of this old school stuff, and that's why I like the All-Stars. Like, they're not my favorite wrestlers, but like I can look at this, I see Bill Watts, I see this ballpoint pen, and it just takes me back to Mid-South Wrestling and what he was doing. So this one is still in the collection. I only have one copy. That I won't be getting rid of that because, again, I only have one copy. So that's one we're keeping. Moving on to the next wrestling. I promise I've got other cards in here that are not Wrestling All-Stars. We will touch on some of that. So, unfortunately, not very long after I got this card, this guy passed away. And I'm going to do a whole nother show at some point talking about people passing away, selling, buying, and just kind of some ins and outs on that. But here we have Sheik Adnan Al-Kaisi, which I'm sure if anybody remembers him, I would say most people probably associate him with this time in the AWA, which is what I did. I would watch it when I was a real little kid. I would get tapes or see it on ESPN. In fact, like if I remember right, like most of the time I saw it on ESPN, it was either reruns or it was later on, and Sheik wasn't in there. Some of you may remember him with his time in WWEF, whatever. As is it? No, it wasn't Mustafa. Maybe that was Iron Sheik. He was with the Iron Sheik. They were together. So I love the auto on that. Really cool. So that's the only one I have in my collection. If memory serves, I got this from Uncle Danny again in a trade like maybe a year ago or so. So again, the more relationships you build within the hobby, you kind of just these cards start coming to you. And the podcast, and check the show notes in the links below. I've got links to everything that I'm involved with that you want to show your support for anything else that I put out. But there's a link to the podcast in there if you've yet to check out my podcast. It comes out every other Monday morning. And next Monday, this coming Monday, I should say, the podcast is going to kind of talk about building relationships and how you can kind of get the cards you want. Because a lot of people will say, I can't afford it. I can't find it. This person won't trade with me. They want to rip me off. There's all kind of things that you can kind of take into consideration when you're doing a trade. And I talk about that. I talk about building relationships. And how many times have I mentioned Uncle Danny in this episode already? That he's always been fair with me. We've not made some deals before because we were off, and that's okay. It didn't nobody blocked anybody. Nobody said this person's a scammer. This person's a ripoff. It didn't work. But sometimes it does. Sometimes it doesn't. The more you put yourself out there, the more you build relationships and talk to people, the more of these kind of cards that aren't on eBay every day come your way. So I think I might have a couple other All-Stars. We'll keep going. Again, if you have a comment, questions, anything, leave a comment below. Drop it in the chat. All right, so we've got a Sergeant Slaughter, and this one is in the black Sharpie. Looks really nice on this, but I think it's different on a lot of these All-Stars. I talked about the Bill Watts and the ballpoint ink pen because think about it. Like when most of the time when people were taking these cards up to them, hypothetically, let's say Bill Watts was in the ring. And if you watch a lot of that old wrestling footage, you'll see fans kind of crowd the ring and they're holding tickets or 8x10s, or in this case maybe cards. They're like holding them in the ring, and you will see as the announcer is announcing the wrestler, he's like over there signing. You can see this in all different I'll say like Memphis studio wrestling. You can see this in Mid-South. See it in a lot of the territory era. So that's kind of, I look at the Bill Watts card. And this one, I know it's in Sharpie. It maybe looks better, but it doesn't have that old school appeal. That's fine. I'm not going to get picky about grades, although this is a pretty good grade on this one. Again, not picky about grades. Just if it's in my collection, it sends me back to watching Sergeant. I understand Sergeant Slaughter had a long history before WWF, but I just immediately associate, when I think of Sergeant Slaughter, I think of G.I. Joe, and I think of heel Sergeant Slaughter in the WWF, not as the American hero. Nope, the heel in the WWF. So happy to have that one. Let's just keep the All-Star cards going, and then we will. I think I only have one more. Yeah, I only have one more. So this one was unsigned. So kind of my plan is I want to get all these signed, right? But there's going to be times where I've got the card that I got out of the Cardona collection, just in case you don't remember, if you haven't listened to any of my content before. I bought my entire 82-83 run for Matt Cardona just in one shot for I think it was like $700 a couple years ago. And so I've got that extra little collector thing with the collection. That being said, I'm slowly replacing some of those. So like the Hogan, the Flair, the Andre that I have, those are all out of his collection. And there's some other ones as well. And the one I'm getting ready to show you right now is also out of his collection. But there's going to be some times within the collection where I can't find a signed copy either at the time, or they're just, maybe there's 3 of them out there, and Uncle Danny or Rob or David Peck, like, they've got them, so I can't get them because they're not going to sell them. So what do? Well, I just take the base card and get it graded, and it's kind of a placeholder. That way, I still have the complete set, and then I can just kind of replace those with signed copies as they pop up, as I can afford it, whatever it is. So this one, really good grade, PSA 9, Ernie Ladd. Again, like I said, I think 8s are pretty solid on most of these All Stars cards. But if you get above that, like, you're starting to talk a little bit more money now. Now, I didn't see this graded 9. Oh, what's the 9's comp for? I've got to see what I can sell. No, it's part of the collection, part of the set, staying in there. And it won't be replaced unless somebody out there needs a 9 and wants to, give me some extra compensation for giving them the higher grade. I'll get one in return. And I do have some other all-star cards that I've been, like, this one was in a sub that was all unsigned. So what I was doing, again, is picking those ones I don't have signed, or that I can't just go out on eBay and find signed at a reasonable price. And I just started filling in the holes. But then I have some extras that I've picked up in bulk lots or collections or whatever. Some of that stuff just appears on eBay. So this one will not be on eBay. However, there are a few that will eventually be on eBay. And we're going to kind of move into some of that stuff next. So we're going to just hit some other highlighted cards and talk about them. So this one will not be, I've talked about it before, probably one of the most important cards in my collection, but not the most valuable. And that is this Hulk Hogan 1987 Topps with a gold signature. Now, why is this important? We've talked about it. You guys know. Anytime you're collecting stuff, sometimes you got to let stuff go. Sometimes you lose stuff in a move. Sometimes there's a catastrophe and it just burns or gets flooded. Or, collectibles disappear. And the thing with this card, amongst everything I've done my whole life, this is one card that has survived everything from my childhood, and I still have it. And to have it signed by Hogan, very poor grade. There's a huge crease in it. I remember having that crease in it when I was a kid, and it's just like, for whatever reason, I just kept it forever. And I only have a handful of items like that. Maybe I'll do a video talking about that one of these days. But this card will be in my collect. Again, this may be a coffin card because it's a low grade. Hogan signs tons of stuff out there. So it's really not that important to a lot of people, but it is important to me because, again, to have something that survived that long. So very happy with that one. Let's see. Moving on. Todd's got a question. What cards are you needing the most from that set? It's the probably really obvious ones. Like, going back to Ernie Ladd, like, you don't see a lot of his Wrestling All-Stars autos just out there. I've only, in fact, since I started trying to get the auto sets, I specifically maybe only remember seeing 1 or 2 ever pop up on eBay. Obviously, Andre, I've ever only seen 1 of those, and I think it was on eBay and then pulled because I think Uncle Danny bought it to get into the registry. So Andre, a lot of the deceased wrestlers are really the ones, or maybe it's one of the lesser known names. Like, I can't remember, me and Uncle Danny were talking about this, but there's one of the names in there that he was wanting to sell, and it was just, I didn't want to pay that much for it at the time. But, it was like, I don't know, maybe like top 2, top 3, something like that. Like, it was a guy that wasn't as well known as a Hogan or a Flair or a Sergeant Slaughter or somebody that does sign these pretty frequently at conventions or whatever. But it was like, he just didn't sign that much. There's not very many that have popped up. So it becomes rare because people want it to complete the set, but it's not really that valuable based on the name. I don't know. It's kind of tricky. So I would say overall, Andre, of course, which I'll probably never, like, I have an Andre, but it's an unsigned one. And Ernie Ladd, and just kind of some names like that, mostly deceased. Kerry Von Erich, that's another one. So thanks for the question there. Let's move on to the next card. This one also means quite a bit to me, different reasons. I'm not going to say I would never sell this one, but I don't plan to anytime. That's this Cactus Jack Just Bend 'Em. So around the, Attitude Era, like, and even to this day, like, I still think action figures are cool. I don't have a lot of them anymore just because I've talked about how they're valuable, but they don't have the same long-term value as cards. I don't like, it's just a proven fact. Like, I've had some of the most rare wrestling figures that people call chase figures, and they go for a couple $100, but yet I've sold cards for 5 times that you wouldn't think are as cool or rare or have the demand, but yet they do. So this card, Cactus Jack, Mick Foley. First off, I love the art on these Just Benham's cards. It takes me back to when I used to actually have my figure feds when I was a kid and playing. And if I didn't have the figure, I'd use a G.I. Joe or Masters of the Universe action figure or something to go with my wrestling figures. And this card, like the artwork on it and the back, knowing that this came from a wrestling figure is really cool to me. I love the signature, and it's kind of the dual signature because there's the facsimile signature down here, and then you've got the big one replicated right on top of it. So I thought that was kind of a cool touch to get done on this card. Don't care so much about the grade, but I think Tony Vela, WrestlingGradeCards.com. Shout out to Tony. He got this done at one of the conventions he was at. I sent him some cards and got that done. So again, I don't know. This one's, I'm not going to say it's like untouchable. So if you were just like incredibly interested in this, maybe. But for right now, it's a PC item. All right, moving on to the next card. And we've got more. We're getting the good out of the way first. We're going to get into the bad and what PSA did to not only deny me, but I actually 2 days ago got another part of a submission, and I am even more mad about that than I am being denied for something specific that we will talk about. Next card is probably something a lot of people are going to like, and that is PSA 9 header card from NWA, about to WCW, whatever, same thing. Wonderama, purple paint pen, and it's an awesome looking card. I think this is a great card. It is going to be available for sale on my eBay store. If you would like a link, check the show notes for links to my eBay store. But this will be available, and the reason being is because when I start, transitioning into selling more full time, I start really, really pinpointing like, what do I need for the PC? What can stay? What can go? So I look at my Flair stuff, and we're going to get into a spoiler alert, a little bit more Flair stuff here in a minute. But I look at the Flair stuff that I have, and I'm like, oh, okay, I've got the 82 All Stars. I need to get it graded. But this one, like, I'm not a Flair super collector. I'm not putting together this set. So do I really need this in my collection? And then sometimes it's yes, I still want it. And like a Hogan PMG, like that one, just continually, I do this exercise. Do I still like it? Do I want it? Do I need it? Yes, it stays. Am I just so about it? Then maybe I put it up on the eBay store again, because I'm trying to transition more into just selling full time. So this one will be available if you're interested in it. But it's a cool looking card, very nostalgic set. One of these days, I'm going to do kind of I wouldn't say complete set review, but I am going to kind of go over the Wonderama set. Moving on, I told you we had more Flair. This is a fan favorite that people seem to clamor for, and that is the Carnation. In fact, there is a hot chocolate stain. Let me see if I can pull it up. Bam! You can see right there at the bottom of the card, nice hot chocolate stain, most likely. For those, here's one on the top right on the back side as well. So this looks really cool. The blue paint pen matches the border of the card really well. It's a great signature, great card. This one will also be available in the eBay store because I just decided, I don't need a million Flair autos in my collection. I'd rather other collectors have them, and I'd rather have that money to then pay some bills, put in the cross collection, buy that Wrestling All Stars auto I need, whatever it is. And that's just kind of how I'm constantly looking at things. But this set, I did a video on this set in the archives of the channel. You can go check it out. 6 cards in the set. They were put into plastic wrap and like individual wrapped, sealed, and then dropped in the boxes of hot chocolate. So finding high grades, like this is not a good grade, but finding high grades of these cards is next to impossible. They're out there, but very, very hard to do. So that one will be available in the store if you so choose to check it out. Another Flair card that will be staying in the PC, and I've talked about this numerous times, so it's probably no real surprise to anybody. And that is the 91 Tony Vela produced WCW cards. Yes, that's right. He's still printing those out of his newly opened Wrestling Guy store, Phoenix store. Love this card. When I look at this is the epitome of Ric Flair. In the suit, sunglasses, that hair. And, we've kind of established at this point that the WCW Impel is like one of the most famous, impactful wrestling card sets of all time. And it's not because it's the most valuable, and it's not because everybody wants it. It's that you could probably, again, Tony's still printing this stuff. He's, they want to talk about Fanatics allocation with some of these hobby stores, and are we going to be able to get sealed product? Tony's got tons of sealed product. If you guys want to buy some Impel, he can print it up for you. And just kidding. Those of you who don't know, it's an inside joke. He's not really, well, actually, maybe he is printing those. I don't know. Maybe it's the same issue that Upper Deck AEW is having, and that's lack of paper or, foil shortage or something. Who knows? But anyway, I love this card. This is a great representation of Flair. Again, the autograph looks great on it. Love the blue paint pen. Low grade. I didn't figure it would grade that high. Didn't really care, but that will be remaining in the collection for the foreseeable future. You guys want to talk about some negative stuff? All right, so let's get to the main topic of the video, and that is denied by PSA. So what happens is I have one of the 1991 Chromie WCW Diamonds, Scott Hall, Razor Ramon, whatever you want to call him, and I sent that to Tony. Tony was doing a signing with him and Nash. In fact, I think it may be one of the last signings that he did before he passed away. So let's go ahead and show the card. Gotta find it here. So this is the card that appeared. This is my card. I have it right over here. So this was signed in person by Scott Hall, and he signed it Diamond Stud because he said that, according to Tony, that he hadn't signed a lot as Diamond Stud on these cards. So I'm not sure if maybe some of the cards that he had of this were signed Scott Hall or Razor or who knows. So I was like, okay, well, this is cool. I love the card. Always been a huge fan of Scott Hall. In fact, I thought it would be cool to get a Diamond Stud, a Razor Ramon auto, which I have both of those as each character, and then I really want one of those WCW Scott Hall autos that are now, very expensive and very famous at this point. So I was like, okay, well, this will be cool. So I sent it to PSA, and they deny it. They say that they can't prove that it's authentic. Let's talk about it. Again, what do you think about this? Leave a comment, leave a note in the chat what you think about this, but I can understand, and to an extent, that they would say, okay, well, this is not, it's not a cursive signature per se. It looks like someone just printed this out, like, wrote the letters. I kind of get that, and I understand that PSA has got their reputation on the line. That being said, let me pull up some other examples. So here, get this, check out the signature, make a mental note of it, and then we are going to skip over to some other things. Now, I did make a note. This is the other thing. I put a note in my sub that there are other examples out there of this signature that you could verify. So we're going to show the first one right now. Talk about that a little bit. Gotta find it. All right, so here is a BGS. Okay, so you can see that one a little bit better there. And if you look at it, it's pretty close to the one that I have. So then, of course, my thought is, well, if I told PSA that there's other references out there, they looked at this and they said, oh, it's Beckett. Beckett, they authenticate fake autos. PSA does the same thing. So I don't know why, there's that one that's, it was graded as authentic, yet, denied. So let's talk about another card that we have reference of. And in fact, this signature is even more comparable to mine. So again, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this, what you guys think. So here we are, and this was by SGC, one of the old labels, which I actually really like the old labels of all the companies. I just think they're cool. Again, maybe it's that whole, like I love the ballpoint pen autographs, and it's like this old school mentality. I don't know. But anyway, if you look at, I can't zoom in anymore on this, but if you look at the auto, it's very, very similar to mine. And again, SGC authenticated this as being an authentic auto. Now, that being said, I will, I guess, take defense a little bit here. SGC do autographs anymore. If it's a certified autograph, they will authenticate it, grade it, whatever. But if you have like an aftermarket one like this and you send it in, they won't grade it like Beckett and PSA will. So then maybe that's strike two. So maybe the first one was it's Beckett and PSA has a bias against Beckett. Well, maybe the second one is because, well, SGC wasn't authenticating true autos. So maybe that's strike two on me. So I was like, okay, whatever. And then I just kept looking. And then I found another one that is actually authenticated by PSA. I'm going to pull that. In fact, I've got a couple of them. Start with this one. So this one has a little bit different. If you look kind of at the D on the diamond and the S, it's a little bit different, but it's still kind of the same pattern, same layout as mine. And here it is, PSA sub. So I don't know. What do you guys think? Do you think grading is a sham at this point? You know, there's been so many different exercises that people have talked about where they took a PSA 1, sent it in, got it, crossed over, came back at a 9, or they took a BGS 2 and it crossed over into a PSA 1 or altered or not authentic or whatever. So I don't it's just kind of a necessary thing, especially if you're going to decide that you ever want to sell these down the road. Just grading makes it so much easier to sell. But there's so much that goes into this. But anyways, here's an example of PSA grading, a version of my same card, very similar autograph, but yet that one did not get denied. Oh wait, but we're not done. Let's talk about some more shady. I believe they're real based on kind of how wrestlers sign things. But here is another PSA authenticated diamond stud auto. I can get this to go here. Now, look at that. That one actually looks worse than mine from the fact of maybe is a rushed signature or somebody just drew it on there. But yet PSA authenticated it. So I don't know. What do you think? Let me know in the comments. Let me know in the chat what you guys think about this whole situation. And so hold that thought. So you may be thinking well, what am I going to do now with my card? I can't get it authenticated, even though I know for a fact Tony sat there right beside Scott and had him sign this. But at the same time, my OCD, it doesn't if I have the All-Stars graded, then I kind of want all my autographs in PSA slabs again with the OCD thing. So what do I do? And that's something I haven't quite figured out yet. And with the whole story, it's kind of a late addition to the party, to the live stream. And that's because I just got it in 2 days ago. So the next thing that we're going to talk about here is more WCW Chromie cards. Imagine that. So I had 3 cards, and I sent them in with some other subs. I had the All-Star sub I just talked about. I have another one. So I'll probably do another video. I've got about 25 cards coming back that are grade only. And I don't know when those are going to get here, but maybe we'll do another live stream when those come up so I can kind of talk through those. And so I had a bunch of autographs go out that we just showed. That's the most recent sub. And then I had the Wrestling All-Stars non-autograph. That was a sub. So with that, I had a bunch of reholders. For anybody who doesn't know, PSA, you can pay the service, and if you have something that's graded through them and it's scuffed up, scratched, whatever, you can get it reholdered. I had a PSA 9 orange, poor man's gold, 2022 WWE Prism. I kind of talked about that on Instagram post where, I saw that card, the Black 1/1 Rock from that series, set the precedent for wrestling cards. I mean, that's the highest sell we've ever had. So I was like, how can I be a piece of that history and still, I can't afford or want. I don't really necessarily want that Black 1/1, so why would I ever try to make a play on it? But what can I do? And I've always thought that the orange is really cool because it's always been referenced as the poor man's gold if you look at it a little weird. So I had the PSA 9 of that I bought on eBay. Got it in hand, and the slab was just all scratched up. But even in the 9 grade, I was like, whatever, I'm buying this. And the seller did not want to work with me. He's like, well, you can return the whole thing. I'm not going to give you a partial refund for some scratches, even though it wasn't advertised. It wasn't in the picture. So I was a little salty about that, but I'm like, I forget it. I've got these other cards that I need to get reholdered as well. So I had the Rock, and then I had, again, a Diamond Stud Chromie, and a Steve Austin Chromie, which I had talked about on a Market Watch video. I think it was last month that I talked about that, about how I was happy with the grade. It got an 8, but it was currently at PSA at time I recorded that and was being reholdered because they came in those gigantic, hideous slabs of the size of Texas. And again, uniformity. What am I going to do with that when all of my other slabs are the standard card size? So when I put these out, I was like, okay, here's the rock, whatever. We'll get that reholder. Then I had the chromie cards, and I specifically wrote in the notes on my submission sheet, I want these put into standard card slabs because I know it can be done. You have references out there with your own company that has graded these things in the standard slabs. And I don't want these Texas size slabs. I want the regular ones. And that's why I'm getting these reholdered, because the original slab, there was nothing wrong with them to begin with. It's just I didn't want those gigantic ones. So I wrote that in there. And 2 months passes or whatever. I get them back, and they're in a larger box. And I'm like, oh no. I already know what happened with these. And sure enough, let's share the screen so you can see these hideous monsters. Again, they came back the exact same grade, so I didn't lose anything per se. But what am I going to do with this? Like, again, I need like a shoebox to put that in. So not only did I pay for the reholdering service, but they came back in the exact same thing. So you might say, okay, well, it was an error, or something happened. Well, if I again looked at my sheet, because PSA sends your sheet back with you on your returns, and when I looked at the sheet, they had checkmarked that they read the directions. So they read exactly what I put, did not do what I asked. So, but we're not done. That happened with the Steve Austin card, of course. But then, just like, they must have this vendetta against Scott Hall, because just like how they denied me on the autos, they also denied me on this one. Once again, put into the gigantic state of Texas slab. And again, what am I going to do with this? So I'm kind of at a crossroads here. Like, I'm going to get a hold of PSA actually not too long after we do this. I got to record a podcast, and then I'm going to message PSA and be like, hey, this are the instructions I wrote. I specifically wanted this done with these cards, and it's not being done. And it was checked that it was read. And okay, so maybe you may be saying, well, Zhan, maybe they just don't grade these in the smaller slabs, So, and then I was like, okay, maybe that's right. So I started looking around and to see if I could find any examples, and I did. And we're gonna bring those up for you right here. Look at that regular size holder with the same exact card in it. Yet PSA is telling me they can't do it, or maybe they just did not follow the instructions. So what do I do? Oh, but okay, well, that was a one-off, maybe. But no, there's more. Technical difficulties here. Sorry. Bam! Look at that. Talk about difficulties in the slabs. Here's another one. The same one, the Steve Austin card. They put it in a smaller slab. I don't know. So and I'm going to message PSA when I get off here and get done recording the podcast and be like, what gives? What's going on? Like, why can't I get this for the smaller, So not only did they not send me this one, but they, I had to pay for that. So I paid not only to get it graded the first time, then I paid it to reholdered, and it was just reholdered in the same holder that was in to begin with. So I am not happy about that. In fact, I'm actually more irritated with that than I am the diamond stud thing. All that being said, I'm kind of at this crossroads with this stupid chromie set. And this may sound like juvenile and Zhan, you're an idiot, and that's fine if you think that. But again, it's my OCD thing. What fits in my collection? What fits nicely in boxes? And I'm kind of at a crossroads with this chromie set because I've got a lot of I had 2 complete sets. I pulled the Austins out. One of them I sold, and that one Austin I sold more than paid for all of these put together, including the reholdering fee. But I'm still salty about that as a side note. So what do? I've got what's left of the 2 sets still in a box over here, and I'm thinking about putting all this stuff on eBay and just getting rid of it, just because I'm throwing my hands up with it, don't know what to do, might as well just take it, move it into some all-star stuff I need, or whatever. Very irritated with PSA on this, but what do you guys think? Am I being completely irrational here? Would you do the same thing? What do you think about PSA? Have you had this problem before? But that's pretty much it. That's what I wanted to talk about today, and just kind of go over some cards that I got back. And some of them will be available in the eBay store. Again, check the links in the show notes when you're done watching this stream, and maybe some of that stuff will, I would say over the weekend, maybe I'll try to put some of it in there. But if not, it'll be up there eventually. There's a couple other cards that I did not cover that were also like, maybe they just weren't worth talking about or didn't have really good talking points or something. Some of that will be in the eBay store as well. Others just like PC stuff that I just didn't feel like talking about because it was, a PSA 5 base card, Billy Robinson or something that needed to go on my PC because I didn't have the signed copy. So thank you guys for tuning in. If you enjoyed this video, if you enjoyed this live stream, let everybody know about it. Tell a friend, give me a like, hit that subscribe button. Just keep collecting wrestling cards, keep having fun. And until next